Greetings, it's Iain from RTO here. Welcome to the first marathon back. 3 days in, it doesn't seem like I was off the air for a week. And today we have got a viewer's request, or a friend's request in my case. It is a band that was suggested by Richard McCook, and he asked if I could do Steeleye Span, which I don't mind because I have seen them twice. Saw them in their own concert and they supported Status Quo once. Very good band, very entertaining. Now, Steeleye Span were formed in 1969 in England by then ex-Fairport Convention bass player Ashley Hutchins and an established folk duo called Tim Hart and Maddie Pryor. And they were part of that, what they called the British revival of folk music. And this is when they was at their most successful. Lots of personnel changes, but Maddie Pryor is sort of the remaining original member of the band. They do mostly traditional folk songs and they jazz them up. They also do little tracks and jigs or little reels and some of the child ballads. The traditional songs are often include some of the some great vocals, or they've used people's poems. So really, really good. Not really a bad album here. And they've released 24 albums. So here we go. So coming in at number 24. Now this one comes from 2002. And it's called Present, the Very Best of Steeleye Span. It's new recordings that are previously released songs, so it's just a redo album. So playing on here, we've got Maddie Pryor on the vocals, Rick Kemp on bass and vocals and guitar, Peter Knight organs, mandolins and violins, Bob Johnson guitars, and Liam Ginocchli, I think was it Ginocchli on drums. So there's all these tracks have been re-recorded, and it's the tracks they've re-recorded are Sir James the Road, Hard Times of Old England, Camille Frey France, Thomas the Rhymer, Lightweight Dirge, Blackjack Davy, Two Magicians, Blackleg Midwinter, All Around My Hat, John Barleycorn, Long Lartin, One Misty Moist Morning, Let Her Go, Guard Day Tay, The Weaver and the Fracture Main, Drink Down the Moon, King Henry, and Rosebud in June. I always find these albums a bit of a cop-out myself. I don't like re-recorded versions. I'm not good. I mean, Guard Day Tay is pretty good. All Round My Heart's not very good. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 3 out of 10. Okay then, coming in at number 23. Got the 12th album. Now this came out in 1986. Excuse me. And it's called Back in Line. Now this is after almost 6 years hiatus, and it's the first album without founding member Tim Hart, who quit the music business in its entirety. And it was the last album that featured Maddie Pryor's husband Rick Kemp for a little while, because he'd got a shoulder injury that forced him to stop playing for a long time. So the band was Bob Johnson vocals and guitar, Rick Kemp vocals, bass guitar, Peter Knight all things violin and piano, keyboards, vocals, the Nigel Pegram on the drums, and Maddie Pryor of course on the vocals. So the first track is called Edward. Now, good track, but the drumming mix is just so 80s and it just doesn't suit the band. It's great singing, but that production. Isabel, great vocal from Maddie Pryor, nice piano work from Peter. It's okay because there's no really drums on it, and it's what you accept, one of the best tracks on the album. Lady Diamond's up next. Bob Johnson sings this. Unfortunately, it's probably one of the worst tracks they ever did. Not because of Bob's great singing, it's the production. It's that what I call the hook song classic drum beat. Remember the Horkstow classics? They had that doom tick, and that's all through this. Which wise so and so thought, oh, let's do that for them. It just doesn't work. Then we have Cannon by Telemann. Bad drumming, shocking drum beat, doesn't do anything for me. Peace on the Border, once again, the drum beat is just out of sync with everything else. It just doesn't suit Steeleye Span. Black Leg Minor, at last some nice guitar work. It's a nice little tune, but the drum mix is wrong, unfortunately. White Man, another shocking track, shouldn't even be on this album. Two manufactured 80s. Then we have Lanacost. Now, I do like this. This is a proper track in a sort of way, but the drumming is just terrible. Smooth, smooth, smooth. And then we've got Scarecrow, the Battle of Cropperty Bridge. So 80s sounding. It's a shame because the vocal is great, the storyline's great, but I don't know which person in the record company thought they could do this to a great folk band. It ruined the album, the song. Take My Heart, that horrible drum mix from the 80s. Great vocal from Maddie, and that's all I'll say. Yet another example of the decade that ruined bands because of the record producers and the company moguls wanted that 80s sound on everything. And some bands it worked, some it didn't. This is one that didn't. There's some really good tracks on this album, though, that I know sound better when they're done properly. So I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 5 out of 10. Okay, coming in at number 22, we have the 19th album, which is from 2004, and it's called Winter. And playing on here is Maddie Pryor, Peter Knight, Rick Kemp, Liam Janockley on the drums, and on guitars Ken Nicol. So this is a mixture of originals and carols. We've got The First Noel down in Yon Forest, very traditional of course. Unconquered Song, which is a Ken McNichol composition. It's pretty good. It's got that winter feel to it and Christmassy. Then we got The Chance of the Cantileer, which is very nice of course, written by William Austin. Bright Morning Star, nice version of that. Peter Knight's Winter is lovely. It's got some nice piano bits on it. See Amid the Winter Snow, nice version of that. The Mistletoe Bow, or Bow, nice little track by Ken. Sing We the Virgin Mary, Today in Bethlehem, Blow Your Trumpet, Gabriel, and Hark the Herald Angels Sing. One Good King Wenceslas, and we end up with In the Bleak Midwinter. Music, of course, written by Gustav Holst. I think this is a very good Christmas album. Lots of, beautifully put together. Some nice original songs that give you in the festive mood. And I do like listening to this at Christmas. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 5.6. Okay, coming in at number 21 from 1998, the 15th album, Horkstow Grange. Now, this is the first album recorded without founding member Maddie Pryor. So Gay Woods, who was in the band previously, comes in and does the lead vocals. Although the other three members of the band all do lead singing as well. And so it's Gay Woods on vocal, Bo Duran and tambourine, and Bob Johnson on vocals and guitars and flamenco guitar. Peter Knight on the usual pianos, violas. Tim Harris on bass and vocals, and the unofficial drummer was Dave Mattox. Then we have the first track on here is a little track called The Altar Fire. Not too bad. I mean, Gay can sing. She's a good singer. It's pretty good. The Tricks of London. This is okay. It's quirky. It's got little bits of London Bridge is falling down. That gives it an extra little bit of quirkiness. Then we have the title track, Horkstow Grange. I love these sort of capello type singing. And they do a fine job. I like that. Lord Randall, sung by Bob. It's okay. pretty solid. Erin, pleasant song. Gay Woods is doing a fine job on vocals, pretty solid. Then we have my favourite track on here, Queen Mary, Hurdston House. It's a lovely vocal from Gay. It's a nice little story type song. I like that. Bonnie Birdie, very Celtic. Love the guitar work on this. Then we have Bonnie Irish Boy. It's not too bad. It's a little bit whiny in places, but yeah, it's okay. I Wish That I Never Was Wed. Very tongue-in-cheek track. My second favourite on here. Australia, nice little folk song about Australia. One True Love, some nice harmony, cappella vocals on this. It's not bad. And the last track on this one's called The Parting Glass. Another really good vocal here from Gay. Nice sort of daunting song as well. It's not a bad album. But Maddie Pryor without not in Steeleye span is like fish without chips. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 6 out of 10. Okay, coming in at number 20 then, we have the 16th album from the year 2000. It was the second of this lineup with Gay Woods doing the singing, and it's called Bedlam Born. So it's Gay Woods, Bob Johnson, Peter Knight, Tim Harris again, and Dave Mattox on the drums. First track is a traditional song called Well Done Liar, and I've really beeped it up. Sounds really good. Who Told the Butcher, which is a Peter Knight song. It's okay, it's a little bit wishy-washy. John of Ditchford, a good track, written by Tim Harris. It's a good rocker, some excellent riffs in this. I do like that one. I See Blood Upon His Nose, written by Gay Woods and Harris again. It's a nice arranging, nice violin playing. It's okay. Then we got Black Swan, a very small classical piece. Sounds very nice, it's an original. Then we have another traditional song called The Beggar. Nice little story, good song by Bob. Poor Old Soldier, pretty solid. Arbor, a very short little piece. It's okay, it's got a bit of a poem to it. And my favourite track on here is There Was a Wealthy Merchant. It's a traditional song. I've heard quite a few versions of this, but this may be the best. Beyond the Dreaming Place, very Celtic feel to it, and it's a very good vocal from Gay Woods. We Poor Labouring Men, another traditional song beefed up. I'm not a big fan of this one. The violin does sound a little bit whiny. Then we have another traditional song, and it's called the Connemara Cradle Song. It's one of probably Gay's best vocals that she did as a lead vocalist with the band. Steve, don't mind this. Probably one of the best songs Bob sang as well. Pretty good. But the White Elephant on this is their version of the White Cliffs of Dover. Give me Vera Lynn's version any day. It's not as good. It's a not too bad version. The two albums of this lineup, I think this is the better one. I mean, Gay sang really well on this, so I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 6.2. Okay, coming in at number 19 from 2014. It's the 18th album, and it's called They Called Her Babylon. Now, the title track deals with the siege of Latham House in 1644 during the Civil War here in the UK, which Charlotte Stanley, the Countess of Derby, was held for 4 months against parliamentary efforts to take the house. There's a little bit of history to this. So playing on here is Maddie Pryor, Rick Kemp, Peter Knight, Ken Nicol and Liam Janockley on the drums. First track is Van Diemen's Land, which is the historical name of Tasmania. It's a nice track, great vocal. And this is, of course, Maggie Pryor, who makes her triumphant return to the band. A very good track. Then we have Samian, named for the Samian Festival. Lovely harmony vocals on here between Maddie, Rick and Ken and Peter. 4 great voices. It's a really nice song. The Hair of Lynn. I love Peter's violin in this. It's really good. It's one of his best ones. The Bride's Farewell. I like the start of this. It sounds mystiquey and it's something different. I do like it. But my favourite track is the title track. They called it Babylon. I love the guitar work. It's quite heavy in here. It's got a great bass line on it from Rick. Excellent track. A Mantle of Green. Peter's violin is really good with a nice vocal from Maddie. Bede's Death Song. Very short solo thing between Rick and Maddie. Excellent little track. Then we get The Verses and Lazarus. Pretty solid track. Bit different for them. Then we have Si Bay, Si Moi. It's okay. Then we have a Child Outlet. It's a little bit non-memorable, bit of a filler that one is. Where's the Life of Man? I'm not very keen on this song. It's a bit long, a bit whiny. Bit of a mixed bag here. Some of the great songs here, but there are some pretty mediocre songs. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 6.3. So let's move on to number 18. The 21st album from 2009. Last to feature guitarist Ken Nickel. And it's called Cog, Wheels and Lovers. So it's Maddie, Peter, Rick, Ken and Liam. And the first track on here is called Gallant Frigate Amoriti. I like Liam's drumming on this. It's very, very good. A stunning vocal from Maddie as well. Then we have Locks and Bolts. Rick's bass on this is pretty good. It drives the song along. And you just get some nice harmony singing on this. Lovely track. Creeping Jane. This is a very shuffle sort of song. Boogie shuffle. I do like this. Some great guitar playing. A great vocal from Maddie. Just As the Tide. A nice acoustic style that flows lovely. It's a traditional sort of folk song. Lorenzo. It's one of those clap your hands, stamp your feet tracks. Bit of fun. The Machinist song. This is a lovely track done on the mandolin. It's a bit of a sea shanty. I do like them sort of tracks. Our Captain Cried. Another really great song from Maddie. Lovely vocals. Two Constant Lovers comes next. I'm not keen on this. Doesn't sound right. It just not for me. Then Madam Will You Walk is another boogie folk song. Great song. Great guitar riffs. The Unquiet Graves, it's a nice song with some lovely violin playing on it. Then we have Thornaby Woods. Great track. Great vocal from Maddie. Never seems to falter. So this is a really good album. Not a bad track on this really. Very hard to rank Steeleye Span because there's some really good albums here. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 6.5. Okay, coming in at number 17, the 23rd album from 2016. And you're going to excuse the title because it's called Dodgy Bastards. And it features several arrangements of the Child Ballads. And it was the first album with the departure of fiddle player Peter Knight and the final album to feature Rich Kemp. So it's Maddie Pryor on vocals, Jessie May Smart is now violins and vocals, Rick on the bass, guitars are now Julian Litterman, guitars, mandolin and keyboards, John Spud Sinclair on guitars and vocals, and Liam is on the drums. First track on here is my favourite track and it's called Cruel Brother. It's a sort of rocky folk song, all round my hat style. It's a fine vocal from Maddie. Next track is a thing called All Things Are Quiet Silent. We'll be talking about that a bit later. It's just another version of that song. Johnny Armstrong. I love this. This is what I say. Steeleye Span do sound like the Seekers on this. I'm not doing that in a bad way either. It's very good. Boys of Bedlam, we'll talk about that in a bit as well, because that's another track they've covered on an earlier album. And then we got Brown Robin's Confession. Some really nice harmony cappella sounding on this, but it's Maddie's voice that really sticks out. Two Sisters, nothing wrong with that one, pretty solid track. Cromwell's Skull, it's a little bit too long, shorten it and it would have been a better song. Then we have an instrumental called Dodgy Bastards. It's a great instrumental. The fiddle playing on here from Jesse is great. Good old sort of jiggy type track, and I do like that. Gulliver Gentle and Rosemary. It's a very commercial sounding song, you know, but it works and it's very good. The Gardener. Oh dear. The violin sounds like a cat on a hot tin roof. Doesn't do anything for me. Bad Bones. Good vocal. One of the guys is singing, I'm not quite sure which, but it's pretty good. And the last track on here is the epic, the Lofty Toolship and Shallow Brown. Now, the Lofty Toolship is like a sea shanty sort of thing, and it's got this wind that goes through, so it's sort of thing that they may be singing at sea. And then the shallow Brown, it's a more gentle with some nice violin from Jesse. A great track to end the album. Another solid album from Steeleye's span. It's got some really good tracks on here. Good album to listen to, so I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 6.6. Okay, I need a drink. All this talking. So, at number 16, 20th album from 2006, and it's called Bloody Men. This album represents a continuation of the band's recent surge of activity. So who's playing on here? And this is one that they coaxed. It's the first album back. One of the first. They've got former members Maddie Pryor and Liam Jennings to come out of and do it, and they coaxed Bob Johnson as well out of retirement. So we got Maddie Pryor, Pete Knight, Rick Kemp, Ken Nicol, Bob Johnson, Liam. So the first track on here is Bonnie Black Hair. Love Liam's drumming on this. It sounds like native North American Indian drums, you know, that boom 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 boom. I think it's got a great little bass line there from Rick as well. Really eerie track in places. Then we have The Story of the Scullion King. Great violin playing from Peter, highlight of the song. The Dreamer and the Widow. I love all the acoustic guitars on this. It's a fine vocal from Maddie as well. Lord Elglin, a nice quirky melody, some nice violin. It's one of what I call the more radio friendly tracks. Three Sisters, pretty good track, some lovely harmony singing on that one as well. The First House of Ian Connell, that's on another album. And then we got Cold Haily Windy Night, that's on another album. Then we have Child Ballad 27, which is Wumil Boar. It's a nice little song. It's a great vocal from Maddie. Demon of the Well. More great drumming from Liam on this, and Peter's violin is good. Then we had Child Ballad 76, which is Lord Gregory. Some great guitar work from Ken on this, especially that solo. It's a really good track. Now, this is on disc 2. There's a track called Ned Ludd, and it's split into, I think, 5 pieces. So the first one is just called Enclosure. It's an introduction, gentle percussion, nice harmony singing from all of them. I do like this. Part 2 is called Rural Retreat. It's a little bit of country and western in there, and sort of a steel guitar feel to it, but it's done on the violin. It's pretty impressive. Ned Ludd is the part 3. Another great thing, I do love Peter's violin on that. The Prelude to Peterloo, very gentle, nice vocals, superb little piece. But the best bit is Peterloo the Day. It's a cappella, it's no instruments, it's really good. There's not a bad track on this album, very pleasant to listen to. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 6.8. Okay, coming in number 15, we have their 24th and most current album, released in 2019. It's called Established 1969. So playing on here is Maddie, Liam, Julian, Jessica, Andrew Spud Sinclair, Benji Kirkpatrick on bouzouki guitars, mandolin and banjo and vocals, Roger Carey on the bass and vocals. We've got some additionals on here. Iain Anderson on the flute on Old Matron, and Sophie Yates plays the harpsichord on the boy and the mantle. First track on here is called Harvest. This starts off again with a little bit of cappella before the instruments come in. It's great having two female singers that really give it that depth. Then my favourite track on here, and it is Old Matron. You've got Iain Anderson doing the flute, Maddie Pryor singing. Brilliant. Absolute brilliant track. Really like that one. Then we have The January Man. This sounds like from a cowboy film when someone's on a donkey that's going down the road. Some wonderful violin from Jessica on that. Then we have The Boy and the Mantle, the three tests of chastity. It's a traditional song. The harpsichord on this from Sophie Yates really adds to it. It's a fine track. Then we get Mackerel of the Sea. Now this is sounds like a really traditional sort of track. It's well put together. It's got a bit of a sea shanty feel to it. Very, very good track. Then we have The Cruel Ship's Carpenter, another traditional story track telling a story. I love the story of this. There's a little twist in it. There's some great guitar bits and some great violin. Then we get Domestic, another traditional song. They've really rocked this one up. It's got a damn good beat to it. Very, very good. Then we have a thing called Roadways. Music's by Steeleye Span and the lyric by John Masefield. Great violin solo from Jessica on this. That's the highlight of the track. Reclaimed, it's another very good song. Some great vocals on that. It's a good track to end the album. Still turning out great music. It's a really strong album. I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 7 out of 10. Okay then, coming in at number 14, the 10th album from 1977, and it's called Storm Force 10. So on here is Maddie Pryor on vocals, Tim Hart vocals and guitar, Martin Carthy vocals and guitar, Rick Kemp on bass and vocals, John Kirkpatrick on the vocals and accordion, Nigel Pegram on the drums. And the first track on here is called Awake Awake. This is a traditional song and it's derived from the Song of Solomon. It's a proper old-fashioned folk song, accordion, great vocals. Sweep Chimney Sweep. Now this is a traditional song. It's from the Copper family and it's sung in cappella. It's just amazing. These guys have got some great vocals. Brilliant song. I do like that. Then we have The Wife of a Soldier. Now this is an anti-war song. It's a sentiment on fighting. It's also a sentiment also on the Fighting for Strangers on the previous album Rocket for Cogs, which we'll talk about later. I love this track. The accordion makes it. It's really got a sort of soldiery type thing. Up next, The Victory. Now this was first published by John Ashton in 1888, and according to Roy Palmer, it's the rewriting of a ballad about General Wolfe. It's a very good storyline. It's a great vocal from Maddie. The Black Freighter, one of my favourite songs on here. I love a story. It's a fine delivery by vocal, and that's why I like it. It's basically about a barmaid from the Three Penny Opera. Fantastic piece of music. Okay, Some Rival. Now this goes back to apparently to about 1656. Maddie sings it as a gentle acoustic song, and it's also known as Same Old Tyrant and a Rival Heart. It's very simply done. It's a great thing. I love that. Then we have a treadmill song, and this is another traditional. And this was first written in 1906, somewhere in Somerset. It's known as the Ghoul Song or Durham Ghoul. It's another sort of storytelling about what it was like, probably, I don't know where, living in the country in the early 20th century, which gives it a little bit of history. And then we got 17 Come Sunday. Now this is an early version of a song poem by Robbie Burns, and it's a tale of young love. Brilliant Celtic, Scottish folk, lovely story, wonderful words, excellent track to end the album. This is an excellent album. It's some history here, lots of stories. That's what I like about it. So I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 7.2. Okay, coming in at number 13, the 22nd album from 2013, Wintersmith. On here is Maddie, Peter, Jesse on the violins, Rick, Kemp, Julian. Got a new person here, Peter Zorn on acoustic guitar and saxophone, and Liam on the drums. Got some special guests on here. John Spires on the melodon. We've got Catherine Trickle on the Northumbrian pipes. Bob Johnson pops up and does a few vocals. And Terry Pratchett does some spoken word on this album. First track is Overture. It's wonderful. It's written by Bob and Peter and Maddie. It's got some Northumbrian pipes. Gives it that sense of old style. Lovely deep meaning piece. The Dark Morris song. Love this. Some great drumming on this from Liam. Very good drummer, this sort of stuff. Solid track. Wintersmith, the title track, is a good little rocker, and it's sang by Rick, and I love it. One of his best songs, I think. Then we have You, a really nice song. My favourite track on here is a thing called The Good Witch. Maddie Pryor singing and the spoken word done by the brilliant Terry Pratchett. It's a storytelling. It's a great story by the late Terry Pratchett. He just brought something to this song. The way he was speaking and delivering, very, very good. The Band of Teachers comes next. Another solid song. I like the guitar work on a fine vocal from Maddie. Then we get the We Free Men, solid song. Some nice guitar work. Hiver, it's got a really heavy beat to this. It's very good. Fire and Ice, great drums on this from Liam. I like the bass line from Rick and some of the rich guitars. The Making of Man, this is another clap your hands, singing, sort of stomping your feet. Then The Crown of Ice, another rocky song. There's plenty of them on here. Good riffs on this. It's an excellent track. Then we get The First Dance, It's Okay. Then we get the Dark Morris tune as an instrumental. It's okay as an instrumental. The Summer Lady, the combination of the guitar and violin really work on this. Then we have Ancient Eyes. Some of the lyrics are quite fetching, not too bad. And We Shall Wear, What Shall We Wear, Midnight, another great song. Reminds me of the Strawbs, the way it's delivered. It's a very good album. It's one of them terms you can't just listen to one track. You put it on and you listen to it all the way through. So I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 7.3. Okay, coming in at number 12, the 14th album from 1996, and it's called Time, and it's their first album after a 7-year hiatus. Maddie Pryor on vocals, Gay Woods vocals and Bo Duran, Bob Johnson guitars and vocals, Peter Knight vocals and violin, Tim Harris on the bass and Liam's on the drums. The first track on here is a lovely little thing called The Prickly Bush, and it's got some cappella singing on it. It's got a great bass line, very all around my hat type thing. Old Maid in the Garret and Tam Lee Reel. This is Gay and Maddie singing together. Two great singers performing well, and they've got some wonderful violin from Peter on this. Harvest on the Moon is a very catchy song. Everybody has a little sing on this. It's a harmonising vocal, really, really good. Underneath Her Apron, fine performance by Maddie on this one again. It's got a real great bass line, which is these good tracks. The Cutty Wren, I love the drumming on this from Liam, and the violin gives it so much atmosphere. Go to My Window, and a sort of user-friendly radio sort of song. It's a lovely song, and they really put it together. But my favourite on here is a little thing called the Elf Night. It's a bit of a fairy tale to music. It's wonderful, great vocals, great arrangements, some lovely delicate bits on this, on the guitars. It's just wonderful. The water is Ride, and this feels like that you are on the water. Really, I love how they do tracks like this. Any band, wonderful track. You Will Burn, great team, bassline from Tim, dominant part of the track. Corby's, some real more that lovely harmony singing that you get from this band, and a real rich bassline. Then The Song Will Remain is the last track. It's certainly got that last track on the album Syndrome. I'm afraid it's probably the weakest one. But apart from that track, it's a very solid album, so I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 7.4. Okay, coming in at number 11, got the 11th album, released in 1980, and it was 2 years after the band's last album, and it's called Sales of Silver. It's Maddie Pryor, Tim Hart, Bob Johnson, Rick Kemp, Peter Knight and Nigel Pegram. The first track is the title track, Sales of Silver. This is sort of a poppy folk song. It's a great vocal from Maddie. I do like that track. My Love. The combination here of the three chaps singing, but Rick, Bob and Peter, really strong. I do like that. Barnet Fair, what a bass line on this from Rick. The drumming from Nigel is pretty solid as well. It is a very, very good song. Senior Service is now, it's a very sort of rocky, really rocky track from this great bass line though. Gone to America, one of the best vocals from Maddie on this album. Where Are They Now? This is a little bit different from what they've done previously. It's a little bit more commercial, got a little bit of new wave in there, not too much, but you know, they're trying to move with the times. It's not too bad. Let Her Go Down, too poppy. They went too far with this one. Not a very good track. Longbone, changing direction, but this is pretty good. Marigold, and then a little bit of Harvest Home. Some wonderful violin and some compeller singing on this. Then we got Tell Me Why. It's alright. It's not the best track. Yeah, a different album to start the 80s, a little mixed bag here, but there are some really good songs on this, and I do like it, believe it or not. So I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 7.5. Okay, coming in at number 10, we've reached the top 10. This is the 13th album from 1989, and it's called Tempted and Tried, and it was another album after a 3-year hiatus this time. So the band for this one is Maddie Pryor, Bob Johnson, Tim Harries, Peter Knight and Nigel Pegram. First track is a little traditional song called Padstow. Certainly got that Cornish feel of it. You feel of sitting by the sea, eating ice cream or your chips or whatever. Some great drumming from Nigel on there. Next track is a little track called The Fox. Quirky, great drumming from Nigel. Up next is Two Butchers, a very traditional folk song, done in the style of Steeleye Span. Mandolins on here, it's a great vocal. Following Me, another one that sounds really commercial and radio friendly, but it's just got a catchy tune to it. Then we have another of my favourites on here, Seagull. It's got that feel of sitting by the sea. I love the work on this track, but my favourite track is The Cruel Mother. Some violin playing on here from Peter that's out the top drawer. It's got that Renaissance style medieval feel to it. I do like tracks like that. Then we have a Jack Call, which is an old folk song. Bob sings this, very, very good. Searching for Lambs. This is sort of a very proggy sound with a fantastic vocal from Maddie. Shaking the Sheets, another traditional song. Some quality cappella singing on this. some love. It's very uplifting. So we've got a couple of reels here. The first is the first House of Cognaut. I like this. It's got that Irish feel. There's lots of nice guitar work, and the sailor's bonnet is a little bit more upbeat with a bit more drum in it. A great little track. And then we get Child 201, Betsy Bell and Mary Guy. Very moving piece from Peter Knight. I love the violin playing on this. It's deep and meaningful. I would say outside the 70s stuff, this is one of my favourite albums by Steeleye Span. They dropped all that horrible production. They're going back towards their original sound, and I think this is what makes this a good album. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 7.6. Okay, we now move into the solid 70s stuff. So, coming in at number 9, the second album from 1971, Pleased to See the King. So it's Maddie Pryor, Tim Hart, Peter Knight, Ashley Hutchins on bass, and Martin McCarthy on vocals, guitar and banjo. First track on here is The Blacksmith, which we'll talk about in a minute. Then there's Cold, Haily, Windy Night. Love this track. I love the bass line from Ashley. You've got Tim and Maddie singing on it. Great track. Then we have a couple of jigs. Brian O'Lynn and the Hag with the Money. Two fantastic jigs here. Banjos, mandolins. It's just foot stapping, sort of joined in with everything sort of feel to that. I love that. Then we have Prince Charlie Stewart. Again, it's got a Scottish feel to this. Great bass line from Ashley. It's really foot-stapping stuff again. Boys of Bedlam, very Celtic. Love the banjo in this. Another, you can't not tap your feet to it. False Night of the Road, a great vocal. I think it's Tim. You got mixers of guitars and banjo. They really work together. The Lark in the Morning, some lovely playing by Peter here. Lovely harmony vocals as well. Fillmore Drummer. Now this is my favourite track on here. It's a combination of like a traditional English folk and Irish folk music combined together. It's a great vocal from Maddie. The King, one of their great cappella songs. Very short but absolutely stunning. Then we have Lovely on the Water. Great vocal from Maddie. The guitars and the banjo again. All the other instruments in this really make it good. Great track to end the album. A very good second album. The quality is already coming through from their great early stuff. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 7.6. Time for another drink, I'm afraid. Okay, coming in at number 8 then. It's the debut album from 1970, Hark, The Village Wait. And it's the only album that actually featured the original lineup of the band, because they broke up and reformed with an entire membership for the second album. So this is the original band. It's Maddie Pryor on vocals and 5-string banjo, Tim Hart vocals and guitars, harmonium and string banjo, Ashley Hutchins on the bass, Terry Woods on vocals, Gay Woods on vocals. Drums on this are done by Dave Mattox and Jerry Conway. Now the first track is a traditional song, and it's on a Call in a Song. It's based on the tune of Idson Sword Dance, which is Round 610. And it's a very short cappella song. It's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. You can definitely hear Gay and Maddie on that. Then we have The Blacksmith, which is a very traditional song. I like this song. It's a good story song about blacksmiths. Lovely words. And then we got The Fisherman's Wife by Ewan McCall. It's one of these going into pubs to an open mic folk band, cider, crew cut jumpers, mandolin. Yeah, brilliant. Then you get Black Lead Miner, which I've done before, but this is a better version. It's got the mandolin and the banjo, and it's absolutely brilliant. My favourite track on here is one called Dark Eyed Sailor. It's a fine vocal from Maddie. It's a traditional song, really beefed up. Then we get Shore Home Fair. What I like about this one, when you listen to it, you can imagine the old-fashioned fairs with bunting and maypole dancing. It's really nice. Then we have All Things Are Quite Silent. This is a very traditional song collected by Vaughan Williams, and it's a lovely gentle song. It's got a wonderful vocal to it, and it's very short, but it's very powerful. Then we have The Hills of Greenmoor, very traditional song that Steeleye's band got hold of and made it into a very Celtic tune. Very good. Then we have My Johnny Was a Shoemaker, another traditional folk song. Lots of cappella singing on this. Gay and Maddie sound great. Then The Lowlands of Holland, another folk song. It's a very country sort of song, but the banjo on here really makes it. Then we have Two Corbies. The harmonies on this between Gay and Maddie are brilliant. It's a very short piece. And we've got One Night As I Lay on My Bed. There's a transcription by Henry Edward Denison Hammond. It's amazing how these bands take these transcriptions, put some music to it. It's really, really good. Great way to end the album. This is a very good debut album. It's taken all them traditional folk songs, just beefed them up a bit. Very good album. And it's a shame that this lineup didn't make any more albums. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 7.8. Okay, coming in at number 7, we go to the 6th album from 1974. Now We Are 6. Now the title is borrowed from the Winnie the Pooh author A.A. Milne's collection of poems for children, and refers to both its sequence among their albums and the band's size in light edition of a new drummer called Nigel Pegram. So this is the first album on. So it's Maddie, Tim Hart, Peter Knight, Bob Johnson, Rick Kemp, Nigel Pegram. Guest musician David Bowie. So the first track is a little number called 700 Elves, which is a translation of a Danish ballad called Eileen Aft Villenskoff. I love this. It's very prog rock actually. It's got a great little bass line from Rick. Pretty good. Then we have Drink Down the Moon. Now the first half is a round folk song. It's just a combination. It's a very simple track. Very sturdy drum with a bit of bass and the violin, and it's just a really cracking little track. Then we get the title track, Now We Are 6, which is a round folk song. One of my favourite tracks on here. It's a very traditional song. I like it's got a little bit of Irish in there as well. Then we have Thomas the Rhymer, which is a folk song, and it's one of the child ballads. It's quite rocky, this one. The highlight of this is the drums and the riffs. But my favourite track on here is the Mooncoin Jig. I like anything to do with jigs. It's a great instrumental. Sorry, I've just got a thing for them. And then we got Edwin. It's probably the heaviest track on here. It's got some great guitars and bass. Really good. Then we have Long Ago in another rock round folk song. Heavy again. Some nice guitar. And there is a little bit of acoustic sort of breaks it up. Two Magicians, great track. Love the guitars on this. It's got a bit of a jig to it, and it's got some nice harmony singing. Then we have Twinkle Twinkle Star. Yes, the Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. It's not too bad. And then there's sort of White Elephant on here, and it's Phil Spector's name. To know him is to love him. And on here, the saxophone is played by David Bowie. It's the real White Elephant on the album, but it's not a bad version. It's not a bad album. Got a bit of poppy stuff on there, rock and roll nursery rhymes, bit of everything. So I shall give this one an RTO ranking of 8 out of 10. Okay, then coming in at number 6, the 7th album from 1975, Commoner's Crown. So it's Maddie, Tim, Bob, Rick, Peter and Nigel. Guest musician on here is Peter Sellers. So the first track is a little traditional folk song called Little Sir Hugh. Very traditional. It's got an Irish drum on it, which really adds to it. I love the singing on this. It's definitely a pub night song, that one is. Then we got Bark Goes to Limerick. It's another sort of jig song. Mandolins and guitars, violins and a great bass line. Then we got Long Lankin, one of the longer tracks, very Scottish here. Bob does the singing, it's not too bad. Dogs and Ferrets, a very short song, very simple singing, a little bit of drum, wonderful track. Then we have Galty Farmer, traditional, very Irish sounding thing, really good. Now, I know Galty for two things, sausages and bacon. Demon Lover, a traditional. It's really different. It's quite uplifting. I've heard other versions of this and they've really turned this one on its head. My favourite track on here is a traditional song called Elf Call. Once again, they've taken something very traditional and rocked it up. It's excellent. Really good track. Weary Cutters, another of those great cappella songs that I just love. And the last track is New York Girls, which is a traditional track, and you've got Peter Sellers playing the ukulele on this. You can hear it as well. Some nice drumming. It's that Celtic drum as well. Great track in the album. Another strong album from the band. Not a bad track on here. A very enjoyable album. So I shall give this one an RTO ranking of 8.2. Okay then, coming in at number 5, we have the third album from September of 71. And it's called Man Mop, or Mr. Reservoir, Butler Rides Again. Now, Muddy Pryor does vocals, tabor and spoons. We have got Tim Hart on here. We've got Peter Knight, Ashley Hutchins and Martin McCarthy. The first track is a great track and it's a great vocal from Tim and it's called Gawa Wasil. The guitar's on here. It's a little bit different. It's a solid track. Then we get two jigs put together. We've got Paddy Clancy's jig and Willie Clancy's fancy. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Two of my favourite jigs by that Steeleye Span do. We got Four Nights Drunk. Very traditional folk song. Story about being drunk. It's got a lot of tongue-in-cheek on it. Really, really fun song. When I Was on Horseback, a great delivery. I'm not sure who sings it, but it's brilliant. Marrowbones, great vocals between Tim and Maddie. It's a bit of a jig as well. Captain Colstron, a very nice little folk song. Great vocals and that. And then we got the three reels put together. It's Dowd's Favourite, 10 Pound Float and The Morning Dew. Just three little bits put together. Some lovely folk music. Fantastic. Peter's fantastic on there. Then we have Wee Weaver. Simple song. Violin. Maddie singing. Just gentle. Skewball. The electric guitar is great. A few little strums on there. It's a great vocal. Solid track to end the album. This is very traditional folk with a little twist. But this is at their peak of their popularity, so I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8.3. Okay, coming in at number 4 is the fifth album from 1973 and it's called Parcels of Rogues. Maddie, Tim, Bob, Rick and Peter. The first track is One Misty Moisty Morning. Great track. The bass on this is brilliant from Rick and the harmonies do work so well together. Second track, Alison Gross or Gross. I like the strings at the beginning. It's the plucking of the strings on instead of playing. It's plucking the violin strings. Great bass line again and the harmonies is so good. The Bold Poachers, one of Tim's best songs that he ever sang. It's got a great guitar on it. The Ups and Downs. This is Maddie with a little jiggy sort of thing. Some lovely mandolin on this. A wonderful track. Then we have this little short instrumental from Peter called Robbery with Violins. It's got a great bass line and the violin playing is pretty electric. One of my favourite tracks. Then we have the Wee Man. We've had the Wee Man, we've now got the Wee Man. It's just one of them great 70s folk rock. Crisp, great singing. Then we got the Weaver and the Factory Maid. A little bit proggy in places, and I like that. And it's got a great vocal from Maddie. Then we have Rogues in Nation, written by Robbie Burns, and the music's put together by the band. Very good, some nice little drum with some cappella singing. It's very clever how they've done that. And then you've got Camille Frey France, good track, traditional folk track, beefed up with a great riff all the way through it. And then my favourite track on here is the last one, and it's called Hares on the Mountain. That's on the like rabbits. I love the vocal. I like the instrumental piece in the middle. There's some lovely flute in there. The mandolin, it's got that medieval feel to it as well. Another great album, not a bad track, with some wonderful singing on this one. And I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 8.4. Okay then, coming in at number 3. From 1975, the 8th album, and it's All Around My Hat. Maddie, Tim, Bob, Rick and Peter and Nigel. Opens up with one of my favourite songs, Black Jack Davy. Heard this, they do this live, it's fantastic. Nigel's drumming on this, it's brilliant. It's just a terrific track to open up the album. Hard Times of Old England. It's just one of those tracks that's got a bit of a shuffle to it. The drumming on it, it's very shuffle drumming. Brilliant. Cadgwith Anthem. Capella songs. Wonderful. There's not more you have to say about them. Some Wives. I like the riffs and how Peter winds that violin round that riff. The Wife of Usher's Well. My second favourite track on here. It's very rock with hints of folk. Then we have Gambling Gold, Robin Hood. Quirky, I love the keyboards. It sounds like a flute and whistles. It's great to hear. Up next, probably the most famous Steeleye Span track, All Around My Hat. Brilliant. That riff is terrific. It's a great vocal, and it's one of my favourite songs by Steeleye Span. Dance With Me, I think this has got Peter's best violin solo that he ever did. It's brilliant. And Bachelor's Hall ends up the album. It's got one of them great vocals and guitars and violin. They just complement each other. Excellent album with one of the most famous tracks on it. So I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 8.5. Okay, coming in at number 2 is the 9th album from 1976. And it's called Rock Cottage. Maddie, Tim, Bob, Rick and Peter and Nigel again. The first track is London. I love this period of time. This is rock folk at its best. Terrific. Then we have this little interlude bit. It's a traditional thing called the Bosnian hornpipes. Maybe short. I think the singing is great. Lots of funny noises on this. They all sound a bit drunk. Who cares? Then we got this reel, and it's Orfeo and Nathan's reel. Interesting track. It's quirky. It's not folk. It's more prog. It's got some lovely, delicate guitar touches, and the vocals are fantastic. The 12 Witches, which is another traditional song. Another example of taking a traditional folk song, turning it into a more rocky song, like they have done with that one. Up next is my favourite track, and it's called The Brown Girl. One of my favourite tracks, definitely top 10. I think the vocals are wonderful. You remember that song? The next song is Fighting for Strangers, which is part of that sort of General Wolf thing. Very second favourite track. I love this. A little bit different, and it just, if you play them two songs together, it does work very well. Then we have Sligo Mime. Great bass line, some great drumming from Nigel. Very Celtic. And then we have a traditional song called Sir James the Rose. Totally beefed this one up, turned it on its head. Then we have the Drunkard, which is traditional preface by Camptown Racetrack. Isn't too bad. I think out of all the tracks, it's a little bit too long. and I think this is the one that kept this album off the top spot. It's 8 minutes long. I think it should more than 4 or 5 minutes, and you start losing interest. It's a great album though, except the last track. So I'm going to give that an RTO ranking of 8.6. But my number one and my favourite album by Steeleye Spun is their fourth album from 1972, and it's called Below the Salt. Now this album takes a medieval influence and combines it with the band's British folk rock style. This is the first album that Bob Johnson and Rick Kemp played on, and so the band is Maddie Pryor, Tim Hart, Peter Knight, Rick Kemp and Bob Johnson. So the first track is from a collection of things from Harry Cox and Norfolk, and it's some journals that he wrote and were collected by William King by Cecil Sharp in Somerset, and it's called Spotted Cow, and it's just a very great cappella, one of the best. Wonderful. And then we get two jigs, The Bride's Favourite and Tansy's Fancy. I think this is some of the best jigs that they have ever recorded. It's just foot stamping stuff. Brilliant. Then we have a thing called Sheep, Crook and Black Dog. Now this is collected by Ewan McCall from Queen Caroline Hughes Aroma, then living in Dorset. I love this. It's got a great riff. It's quirky. The vocal for Maddie is brilliant. Absolutely top draw stuff. Then we have Royal Forester from the singing of John Strachan. First appeared in Halfway Up the Paradiddle, which I think is brilliant, from 1293. And it's an elementary drum by Anchory Ram. Now, I remember doing this at school. Although this isn't my favourite track on it, I am going to put it in the playlist today, even because I'm not going to put anything off that thing. I want to put this one in because you'll recognise it, and it's one where you get taught at school because of it's great as a round, brings back so many memories. I just love that. Then we have King Henry, which is a combination of popular Scottish and English ballads edited by Francis James Child. The great thing about this, I like how this is split into little bits. It's 7 minutes long, so you've got a gentle bit, a funky bit, there's lots of mandolin and violin in there, the rock section. It's absolutely wonderful, you just don't know it's that long. Then we have got my favourite piece of music by Steeleye Spun. It's a very Christmassy thing, and it's Garda Tay, and that's from Pierre Cantonese, 1582. It's a very old piece, but it's wonderful. It's just so moving, and I've seen them do this twice, and they opened up, I think it was the Northampton show with this. Absolutely stunning. Then just on stage in the middle with a light on them. Wonderful. Then we have John Barleycorn, which is collected by Fred Hammer from Bury Bartle in Bedfordshire, and is dedicated to Margaret Hammer. Brilliant stories about John Barleycorn. It's a true story, and it's been handed down through the years. And I know about this because Bedfordshire is one of the counties that borders Northamptonshire, so it's quite local. It's great, absolutely brilliant. The way that they tell this and interpret this story is so good. And then we have from the Journal Folks of Society, collected by George Butterworth in 1907, The Wonderful Saucy Sailor. I think this is one of Maddie's finest vocals ever. The guitar work is brilliant, and it's such a jolly little thing and a great track to end the album with. I would say this is my favourite album because it's got about 4 or 5 of my favourite tracks ever by the band. It's got the jigs are brilliant. Garda Tay is just unbelievable. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 8.8. So there we go. I hope, Richard, you enjoyed that. I know there's one or two other people that are looking forward to this one. I've really enjoyed doing this one. It was nice to listen to some of these great albums again. Okay, this is a long one today, so this will take a little while. So, as usual, this is the one and only video today. I'll be back tomorrow, though. We've got, of course, the return of the live stream, where we'll be talking about our homework, what we've been doing in the rabbit hole. But before that, we have got a sophomore drone, and this is a power metal one, and it's between Dream Theater and Pagan's Mind. And then tomorrow's pick and mix is In the Camera's Eye, and we'll be looking at Led Zeppelin's The Song Remains the Same. So have a good day, everyone, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye for now.